By focusing on making its character classes unique and emphasizing environmental destruction, Steel Hunters is on track to carve out its own niche within the live service shooter space.
You are my enemy.
Does the world need another hero shooter, let alone one that also incorporates so many elements seen in the Battle Royale genre? That's the question I had heading into my recent hands-on preview for Steel Hunters, the upcoming free-to-play PvPvE multiplayer shooter from Wargaming, a team that has already seen great success carving out a dedicated online community with its World of Tanks and World of Warships franchises. Well, after getting stuck into all the destructive delights Steel Hunters offers for roughly 3 straight hours, I have to say that I'm becoming a bit of a believer, because despite only arriving with 1 mode and 3 maps at its launch into early access on April 2nd, taking down rival mechs was never not fun due to the game's emphasis on teamwork, environmental destruction, as well as some cool hunter designs and abilities. Getting into the meat of the game then, and I'd go so far as to say that Steel Hunters would fall flat on its face without great character designs. This is a third-person shooter where much of the joy is seeing the incredible damage your mech can unleash, after all, and in this area I'm pleased to say that Wargaming has done a pretty decent job at providing a decent mix of cool designs. Though some are clearly based on animals, Fenris runs on all 4s like a dog, Weaver's wide set structure makes them resemble an arachnid, and so on, even those without such features are pretty discernible from one another thanks to different colour tones and their unique outlines. You'd think seeing Michael Bay-esque metallic creatures colliding would make this tricky, yet Wargaming has clearly put a lot of time into making the 7 hunters at launch mostly identifiable from one another. Most of my time, I elected to play as Fenris, because despite Razorside being the de facto all-rounder, similar to Overwatch's Soldier, I quickly came to appreciate his rocket mortar cannon, as well as his ability to make a quick getaway from a particularly chaotic gunfight using his blink skill. Plus, being able to roam about in a quick gallop also makes for a cool visual. Contrastingly, Prophet, as the game's engineer class, starts off with a pretty useful Summon Sentinel ability that is fairly self-explanatory in its execution, being a hunter sort of able to provide its own backup. Because yes, right now, Steel Hunters is a Battle Royale-esque shooter that can currently only be played in teams of 2, with 6 of these squads starting off at different ends of the map, who each then have the same goal: be the last duo left standing. Such a basic objective isn't all that interesting on its own, but it was made a lot more fun by the addition of NPC drone enemies that drop arguably Steel Hunters' most important resource, Starfall, which slowly levels you up the longer the round goes on. Getting from level 1 to 5 as soon as possible quickly became my top priority during matches. You can track the level of all the other teams at any time during the round too, luckily, a fact that meant I roughly knew which one I should approach and which one I should flee from if ever we bumped into each other on the battlefield. Alongside Starfall, which, yes, improves your base stats, it more importantly unlocks a hunter's second unique skill at level 3, working alongside a range of collectible modifiers discovered via littered about chests that can pay dividends for your chances of surviving a clash. If there's a slight downside to Steel Hunters right now, I'd say it's the maps. Not in terms of how they look. All 3 look appropriately gorgeous, whether you're fighting underneath a nondescript San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge or a crumbling Welsh castle. Yes, really. Where I'm failing to see the genius of them right now is in each's inherent destructibility. The sight of crumbling buildings and battered tower blocks is absolutely here, but I can't say that such destruction was all that instrumental in shaking up my strategy or forcing me to think differently about my environmental approach. At the very least, however, all 3 maps did well to help reinforce the size and weight of the hunter I was controlling. Speaking of which, there's a lot of lore to Steel Hunters, I was pleased to learn. Not that you'd know it from playing the game itself currently. For instance, I doubt you'd know that the hunters themselves aren't actually autonomous or even piloted by a person, but rather machines that have had the souls of people placed within them. This admittedly outlandish sci-fi idea is novel and works to separate the makeup of Steel Hunters' titular mechs from the likes of, say, Titans in Titanfall or heroes in Overwatch. It's just a shame that, right now, you really have to go digging for this lore. Following the early access period, my one hope is that Wargaming can find a way to embed these narrative threads organically organically, because equally, I do get that it might not want to overburden shooter fans with lashings of story who are just looking to get in and have a good time. Against all odds then, Steel Hunters appears to be doing just about enough differently from the competition, setting itself up nicely to potentially stand out in what is undeniably a crowded multiplayer shooter market. By deeply investing in its title characters and providing them with a cool suite of designs and abilities, Wargaming has done all it can to give Steel Hunters the best chance possible at making its Transformers meets Overwatch prospect a hit with players on PC. The good news is that it'll be free to play when it launches on April 2nd and won't include any microtransactions for its first season, so the barrier to entry is pretty much zero for anyone wanting to see what happens when steel chassis collide in giant fashion. Do you plan on checking this one out when it launches very soon? Be sure to let us know in the comment section below. Then, why not subscribe to the Mirror Gaming YouTube channel to stay up to date with even more videos like this. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.